One of Iran's top security officials has stepped down after almost a decade. Ali Shamkhani has left his post as the country's security chief and will be replaced by a senior commander in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. Shamkhani was credited with brokering the China-mediated deal with Saudi Arabia recently. Meanwhile, analysis of new satellite footage shows Iran is building a nuclear facility so deep in the earth it's likely to be beyond the range of any weapon designed to destroy such sites. Well, to talk about all of that, we're joined now by Ben Talablu, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for the Defence of Democracy. It's great to have you with us, Behnam. And Catherine Perez-Shakhdam, Head of Policy and Communication at Elnet UK. She's an expert on Iran, Yemen and radical movements. Good to have you with us as well, Catherine. So, Behnam, how important was Shamkhani when it comes to the Iranian security establishment, and what difference will his departure make?
Well, greetings to you, Catherine, and your viewers. It's a pleasure to be back with you. In essence, Shamkhani was a consummate insider. Just like Rouhani, he's someone who had a career across different flanks of Iran's national security bureaucracy. He served with conservatives, with pragmatists, with ultra-hardliners. He's someone who's held the position of Secretary of Supreme National Security Council for the second longest in that institution's history. The first was actually former President Rouhani. And it's worth noting he's Iran's highest-ranking Arab. And he served as defense minister at times when Iran tried to use this point about his ethnicity, try to bridge ties across the Persian Gulf and rebuild relations with Saudi Arabia. So it's no surprise that he played a major role in brokering this as well. Moving forward, given some of the corruption scandals that he personally and his family has had, it's likely that the departure of Shamkhani at the helm, given, of course, his political time and capital spent providing center-right cover for things like the JCPOA and JCPOA talks, is going to mean that more ultra-hardliners at the helm will mean that more confrontation, more escalation is on the horizon with Tehran. So given that an IRGC official, someone who served in the security establishment, and also someone who is subject to non-proliferation and counterterrorism sanctions is going to replace him, Tehran may be trying to play bureaucratic musical chairs and get ready for greater confrontation abroad.
Catherine, do you agree with that? I mean, Shamkhani was an interesting figure, wasn't he? But reportedly he was increasingly at odds with the theocratic regime. What do you make of his departure and indeed of his replacement?
Well, actually, I agree a great deal with Behnam here. I think for me, the way I understand it is I think that Tehran is trying to, not trying to, but is actually radicalizing its language and sending a clear signal that it wants to really gather around the leadership people who are beyond any shadow of loyalty, to Ayatollah Khamenei. And I think that, getting rid of him is signaling this in a very, very strong way. And I'd like to remind you all that he actually served under President Khatami, who was a reformist. And I think that it's sending a clear signal that from now on, only those most loyal to the leadership will be allowed to carry on. And I think that it's not a good sign, because it means that Iran is kind of digging its heels and not willing to negotiate anymore. Now, the replacement, is directly from the IRGC, telling you that, again, there is a move toward the militarization of the leadership. It has been, taking place for a great deal of time, over 10 years now. But I think that the move is going, faster and faster, and it's not boding well for the West or the region.
Well, let's turn to the reports about this nuclear site at Natanz. According to new satellite imagery that's been picked up by Associated Press, this site is so deep in the ground, no military strike could ever have a chance of destroying it. How concerned should we be about that, Behnam?
Well, we should always be concerned when the Islamic Republic is building new enrichment facilities. In particular, in the past 2 or 3 decades, every single overt or declared facility was once a covert or secret facility. So it's good that this facility is now out in the open. But the Islamic Republic should indeed have something to worry about, which is there's always a bigger bomb. The U.S. today and yesterday had been revealing pictures of a new or potentially modified, given the explosives within it, MOP, the massive ordnance penetrator. So while Iran is likely going to be continuing to use digging and tunneling to build new enrichment facilities to continue to hide its fissile material or its ultimate quest for the nuclear weapon, fortunately the U.S. military establishment is catching up here. So we shouldn't let the Iranians win this round of the psychological war.
And Catherine, do you think the West is taking this seriously?
No, would be my very short answer. I think the issue is, look, we know about the nuclear program. It's been going on for decades. I don't think that we understood the level of threat in the sense that how serious the regime in Tehran was in terms of maybe exploiting, their nuclear capabilities and actually posing an actual threat to both the region and the rest of the world by extension, obviously. I think that the problem is Iran is, by digging, further down into the ground and hiding the nuclear program is only confirmation of what we knew, is that Iran is dead set on getting a nuclear weapon with the potentiality that they would use it. We know this to be true. The problem is, by doing this wide in the open, they're telling us that, yes, we are a threat. We are actually, making provisions in case you would like to do something against it. We're running against the clock, but we're so late in the game that I'm not sure that we could do anything. And the problem is the only thing that we would be capable of doing, for example, from London, would be to proscribe the RSGC and actually catch up with the threat that Iran is posing. But even that, unfortunately, our governments are not willing to do because of the potential repercussion that certain experts have told them they would have to face. The problem is Iran is the threat that that the world has never faced before. This type of regime, the ideology that they project, is something we have never seen before. And unfortunately, we're trying to play catch up, but our politicians and our state officials are not fully, I believe, aware of the threat that they're facing. And I'm not just talking about the immediate region. We have to remember that the world has gotten so very small that the West might be protected by its geography, or so we think. But their partners are not in the region. And what good is it to broker deal and promises of standing by should a threat arise in the region against our partners if we don't make good with it, and we're not.
Quite, and we just heard that the Saudis have said if any country in the region gets a nuclear weapon, we will have one as well. So the prospect of a nuclear arms race is always there as well. The anti-regime protests, Benham, have fallen somewhat out of the headlines of late. Today, Tehran summoned the Swiss ambassador over a tweet which called on the regime to stop executing protesters. According to Amnesty, that number is around 270 this year alone. How do you explain Iran's reaction? Are they sensitive to how the protests and the crackdown is viewed?
They're absolutely sensitive, which is why Western media, global media, need to keep the protests in the headlines. 7-ish plus months now, they're continuing bravely, admittedly in less cities than before. We're down from about 150 cities at its peak a few months ago to anywhere from 50 to 70 cities, depending on the weekend, depending on the weather, depending on many other factors as well across the country. That doesn't mean the Iranian people are giving up their quest for change. And I think it behooves Western media, Western press, Western officials to continue to keep their plight, again, in the headlines. The regime is hypersensitive to this because it knows it's already lost the street, and that's why it's trying to suffocate it and go after anyone who dares to put a spotlight on what is going on internally. It's why they're also working on a national intranet, sometimes called the halal internet, to cut off the country from communications and websites abroad, as well as, of course, the great hand of repression that you talked about with the use of sanctioned violence in 2022 and in 2023.
And the repression on protesters has been particularly harsh on Iranian minorities, Kurds. Mahsa Amini was herself a Kurdish woman, also members of the Baloch community. Catherine, just a few days after President Raisi was in Pakistan, Iran is now claiming that Baloch terrorists, as they termed them, carried out a deadly attack on its border guards. I was wondering about your reaction to that.
I'm not surprised, to be quite honest with you. I think these are clear sign. Look, Iran's, ethnic minorities and religious minorities have been oppressed, since day one, in 1979. It has gone, from bad to worse. Even more so over the past, I would say, 18 months, in the light of the protests and other things that were boiling up in Iran. People are quite fed up. And I think that what Iran fails to understand, and by that I mean the regime, is that, it could broker whatever deal it wants with, neighboring country, trying to normalize the ideology, trying to make sure that they are protected, politically speaking, as far as, their neighbors are concerned, and that those regimes surrounding them, play nice. It doesn't mean that the people populating those areas are actually willing, to play by those rules. And I think that, in Baluchistan, people are making their voices heard and quite clear that they're not willing to play the game, that they are very well aware of the threat. They understand the kind of evil that they have to face every day, and they do not want to spend another 45 years, 50 years under the atrocity that Iran is willing to befall.
Catherine Perez-Shahtam and Behnam Bentaleblu, thank you very much indeed to you both.